Good morning, Misfits. How's everybody doing today? Funmon, Miss Mocha Powered, Will Johnson just got done. Kimberly K. Tinka, Eileen Jimenez, Family Low, Bomba. How's everybody doing? It is Woke Wednesday on The Daily Breakdown, and it is a good one. Today is a very, very good one, actually. All right, let's see here. The new Axis. I have a 55-minute interview, which with I think we did it Saturday with James Lindsay. This has been a long time coming, and we're already 3 minutes into the show, so I'm just gonna jump right into it. Trust me, you are gonna want to sit through this whole thing. Here we go. Start. James, it's great to have you on, sir. All right, so we just had to start this whole thing over, but it wasn't that long. It was about a minute or so. But my first question to you was, who started the term woke right? Because I've seen that you sort of mainstreamed it. But
Yeah.
I was a little salty because I was like, I think I've been saying that longer. And I went back into my my camera roll. Like the update on the camera now, you type in like words and it'll go through your pictures. It's an
Yeah.
awesome feature. So I typed in woke right and I found one from like 2021, and you said that was actually before you started it. So I just wanted to say you're welcome because I
Yeah, no, well,
apparently, yeah.
totally. No, yeah, I did the same thing with the left. I mean, this is what I was saying. I did the same thing with the left, what we just called woke up until we had to start saying woke left, woke right. Back in like 1819, I was like trying to call it the social justice warriors or social justice movement or whatever. I didn't want to like commit to woke until finally I caved in. And I did definitely mainstream the term woke right, but I definitely wasn't the first person using it. I was fully aware of it. I kind
Yeah.
of casually threw it out there. There were guys writing articles, like things they published, and I don't just mean like their Substack. I mean like actual things that are published using this universe of phraseology. Like right wing wokeism was a term used by a pastor in 22, and
Mm.
so I was aware of this kind of identification, but it was September of 24 before I started using it regularly. And
Yeah.
I know I never claimed that I started it.
No, I
Everybody
don't.
gives me credit for it.
I thought you did mainstream it, and that's the thing. I think Dan Crenshaw said it before me, but in the context that I used it, right? I started calling them woke conservatives, or woke right. Because what had happened was I was on TikTok and I was getting attacked by the woke left. Now, when I came on TikTok, I was kind of new to the political cancel culture scene, right? So I, made a joke about some leftist with 4 million followers, and they tried to cancel me, and they came at me very, very hard. I mean, 750 negative business reviews, calls, text, everything. You've
Hmm.
been through it. Now
Been
it's
there.
now it's like a regular Tuesday for me, but at the time it was pretty overwhelming. And then I noticed that there was these conservatives that would sort of jump on and like align with them, and sort of because they didn't like how I was getting so much attention because they got my first account down 130,000 followers, second account, third account, fourth account, and I kept coming back and I kept on getting popular, and I was annoying people on the right. And they started in with the cancel culture. So I go, this is woke shit. This is you're acting just like them. So when I started using it, that's really basically all I was trying to say. I go, you're acting like them, right?
Yeah, same here actually.
And what I've evolved in my definition of it. I think we have similar but different definitions. I think that you're a little more on the technical side.
Hmm.
The way I say it, this is how I've described it to my audience. They're probably tired of hearing about it, but we have this. We're going to air this on Wednesday because I actually have Woke Wednesdays. I do this every week because I think it's one of the biggest problems that we're facing culturally. Is this it's the woke part, right? Which is a victim mentality and an identitarian political movement where you have an oppressor and an oppressed, right? That's pretty much what I think woke is, because as you're probably well aware, the woke term kind of started like in the 1920s ish with the black community. And then in the 90s, it was sort of kicked back up. And in both of those times, they actually had an oppressor. They had at least a in the 90s, maybe a little less, but a valid reason to say we are awake to our oppressor. That's the word woke. That's where it comes from. Then in the early 2000s, it's hijacked by the left. Now it's everything that I feel is oppressing me is oppressing me. We are awake to the white man capitalism, et cetera, et cetera. Then I would say pretty recently, now we're seeing the woke right, which is oppressor, oppressed, everything's the Jews' fault, globalist fault, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the woke left
Yeah.
and the woke right, they have two different solutions to their problems, right? Woke left is socialism, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and right wing is ultra nationalism and Christian theocracy.
Hmm.
So it's essentially it's horseshoe theory with a terminology, right? And then there
Hmm.
are people like
Hmm.
Steven Crowder who and Andrew Wilson who say we don't like using woke because then it conflates. I go, I don't think it does. I think that if you want to call them Marxist right, reactionary right, dissident right, I don't care how you call them, but it is woke, right? It
Yep.
is an awake to an oppressor. Think of the Groypers and what they say. We are noticers. It's a synonym, you
Yeah,
know?
they
So,
notice the secret sauce of society.
yeah.
And like so no, you're right. I'm always looking for ways to communicate this outside of the technical bubble, the critical consciousness kind of thing. The sympathy to Marxist analysis or whatever. I'm trying to find this. And so what you just said are the two things. I just had this little interview with a group in Colorado like yesterday. And this is exactly what I told the lady. I was like, listen, it's having adopted this identity politics orientation, my identity matters, and a victimhood mindset about it. And then the third piece is basically give us power, trust us, bro. Like if you give us power, we'll fix it. How? Trust us, bro. We're the new elites. We know how. We'll fix it. And whatever comes out of their mouth is basically BS. It's like, oh, we're going to create an anti-racist or we're going to create a Christian theocracy. It's just BS. They're going to do whatever they feel like once they have power because they are power obsessed lunatics who will abuse power when they have it to do whatever they have to do to keep their power. So it doesn't really matter with those details. So those are the three ingredients, right? Victim mindset, identity politics, and trust us, bro, give us power obsession.
Yeah.
And it's really simple, and that's woke as hell, right? That has downstream from it things like the ends justify the means, so we can be Machiavellian, we can do cancel culture. Now we get this assassination culture problem.
Yeah.
We can do whatever we want, political violence. So it's actually not that complicated. I saw it originally with these Christian nationalists, and I saw a video in February of 22 that they were like, we're going to take James Lindsay off the table. He's going to get in our way.
Yeah.
And so they started trying to like dismantle my work. And the first time I really got attacked by them in a woke fashion, like the cancel culture, was actually like it's something that the left started and they jumped in. And that happened. Actually, that's not true because first I got invited to a Turning Point Faith Pastors Summit by Charlie Kirk. And these guys lost their shit that I was going to talk to pastors. And they went bananas on Charlie. I have all these videos of Charlie like denouncing them from the stage and telling the story of how they tried to cancel me. But the first time it really happened online in any significant way was I got kicked off Twitter for calling trans people groomers. And through most of 22, through about 6 months of 22, and I got let back on in November, and the left went bananas. They jumped in accusing me of being in some kind of sex cult because I took a picture with Nikki Klein at a conference one time in the back room, and we put it on the internet with a joke. She said, I taught him everything he knows. We're both manspreading. I've got like a whole manspreading brand. It's just a straight up obvious joke. And so they wove this story about how she and I were like gallivanting around the country, roping people into sex cults, posted this picture of me with this hot blonde chick like a million times, which I'm like, yeah, that's a real insult. And then like, cool, that's what you got. But what happened was all these weird Christian nationalist guys started jumping in and sharing it too, to try to cancel me with right-wing audiences and accusing me of exactly. And I was like, what the heck? Like the tips of the horseshoe are touching, right? And that's where it's like, this is woke behavior. But yeah, identity politics, victimhood. I don't know. Did you see this video that's been going around this week? It's maybe I can send it and you can clip it in or something. It's like a neo-Nazi from like back in the day, and they're doing one of those, wrap-ups with him after the fact. And he's like,
I met him. We just played it. We played it on my show yesterday. I literally played it. I met him. Nice guy. And what I told my audience, right, is I said, look, this guy for decades has been an activist against this because he really had a true change of heart. Then conversely, I see people like Lucas Gage on Jeremy Boring, and I go, I just don't want to conflate these two things, right? Because the way that we get Candace is when we get these clout chasing grifters who are like, "Oh, I had this wake up moment." Did you, or did Stu Peters screw you out of a meme coin, and you're trying to get back at him? Now, I'm not saying that Lucas Gage is not being genuine. Maybe he is. Maybe he isn't. I'm not trusting it. But that guy, I can't remember his name still. The guy with the glasses,
Yeah.
the former neo-Nazi. He was at the Combat Anti-Semitism Movement event that I went to in Miami, and I distinctly remember listening to him talk, and he's captivating. The way that you can tell his emotions in it, and
Hey,
and
and he was
what
talking about making young men neo-Nazis. He
and
says
what
there's a
he
two-step
said,
process.
yes, and like I said, we just played that clip yesterday. Well, they'll be watching this on Wednesday, but we played the clip on my Thursday show of last week. And he basically says, he goes, "I need to convince you you're a white man," right? And then what I'd say is, I go, "Do you not see the similarities between what the left does? You're a black person, you're oppressed. You're a black person, you're oppressed. You're a black
That's right.
person, you're oppressed."
And
Then
now
we
they're
got
doing BLM riots.
and we're doing the same thing with Joel Webben and all of even Matt Walsh is guilty of it. Like it's
Yeah,
like, guys, racism is a fire that all you have to do to end it is stop throwing wood on it, right?
that's right.
Stop saying white, stop saying
That's right.
black. Racism is woke. I already did a whole episode on that. But yes, continue.
Oh,
I did have that guy on.
yeah. So, I mean, that was my point is like this guy literally says that it's first you give him the racial identity. So you feed him the identity politics and make them identify with a racial category and a group. And then secondly, you make them feel like they're oppressed and a victim as part of that group. And then what you actually do with that, he didn't say there's step three because it's just implied by being a white nationalist or neo-Nazi, is that those people then become agitators and their goal is to try to, seize power or break everything if they can't get it. And so that's the standard woke formula. So this woke right thing is not new. It's not ambiguous as to how it's woke. That was just like the whole point
It just wasn't
that I wanted to.
defined. Yeah, it just wasn't mainstream. And this is what I'm saying. I mean, I don't. It wasn't. It was a joke earlier. Not. I don't care who came up with it. I don't
No,
care about who was
obviously.
first. But mainstreaming it, I believe you deserve the credit, and I think it's a good thing. I wince when Steven Crowder refuses to say it because I understand what his thought process is, right? It's like we don't want to conflate because there will be friendly fire. I had a whole debate with Andrew Wilson about this, where he's like, "But then you're going to have to. People are saying that Matt Walsh is woke, and we're going to have." And I'm like, "He is." I go, "To what degree is not important, right? But if you refuse to, the only way to start correcting a problem is to identify it, right? You have to acknowledge that there is one, and we have a woke problem in the right. It's not that big
That's
yet.
right.
It's not that big, and if we don't stop it now, what we are seeing is we have we have a real just sample of what happened with the left, right? We have the
Yeah.
UK. If we don't stop immigration, we have the UK. If we don't stop the woke right problem, we have our own version of BLM. So,
Yeah, dude, it feels like 2015 to me again, right? So, like, I was doing this culture war crap back in 2015. I was there where, oh, wow, my old friend's in town. Let's go get coffee and hang out, right? Like, cool. Like, haven't seen you in a minute. Let's go get lunch or something. And then it's like you're talking, and then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, that sounds kind of like the person says to you, like, I don't know about that. Have you considered checking your privilege? And now it's like, you're out and you're having a conversation. They're like, oh, I don't know about that. Did you know about the USS Liberty and how Israel attacked us? It's like the same crap, right?
yeah.
Have you noticed that all the Bolsheviks were Jews, which like isn't even close to true? And I mean,
Yeah.
there's even a Jewish joke that they were going to build a statue to Lenin for not being Jewish. And I feel like it's that time again, right? And now I'm getting the same there's another thing that happened back then, which was I started at some point, it's a little later than 15, but I started to have parents because I was working with different groups, right? And I'd have parents come to me and they'd be like, James, so this would have been more like 2021. They'd come to me and be like, James, my kid came back from college and is saying this basically crazy stuff about how America sucks, Christopher Columbus is terrible, Black people are totally oppressed, we've got to end systemic racism, check your privilege, whatever it happens to be. Or even like wilder, crazier stuff like I think I'm some gender that doesn't exist or something like this. And what do I do? And so now I'm having parents either DM or text, because I know a lot of people now, or in person when I go to different conservative events that are coming up to me quietly because I've made a face for this, right? And they're like, James, my son, he's about 19 years old, and he's like kind of saying crazy stuff. He's like, I think we treated Hitler unfairly in history and stuff like that. What do I do? And I'm like, your son's in a cult. He's trans. Like, he's trans. Like, you have the same problem you dodged with your daughter, but now in your son. And I've probably heard this from like, it's got to be over 100 parents now of 15 to 25-year-olds. So this problem's growing. It's becoming real. These guys are, the word I actually got kicked off of Twitter for was not okay groomer. It was child sexualization specialist. I called a trans person a child sexualization specialist and got kicked off Twitter permanently until Elon let me back. But these guys are the same thing. I was calling Elijah Schaffer the woke right youth recruiter for a long time. Like, that's a nice way to say he's a groomer, right? Yeah. He's recruiting young people into an ideological vision, and it just so happens that it looks like he might have been diddling them too.
There's no difference between him and Jeffrey Marsh. There really isn't. There's no difference, and that's the thing. And why do you think that Andrew Tate and Nick Fuentes go after like younger men, right? And I talked about this, I think, on my show yesterday. It's because the reason why the left goes after institutions is because younger people are more impressionable. They're more malleable, right? And if you have some type of nefarious intent, then what you'll do is your target audience will be people who are more malleable. And this is why I think that the quote they, I'm not doing the Candace Owens things, but they killed Charlie Kirk. I think Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk, right? It wasn't I don't think it was some grand conspiracy. However, I think that they put the crosshairs on Charlie Kirk, and Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk because what Charlie was doing was unindoctrinating them, right? Charlie was going to the indoctrination centers, right? And while the professors were telling their students, here's how you should think, here's this, Charlie would go, what did they tell you? I'll tell you why it's wrong, right? Mm-hmm. And they couldn't have that because, and that's probably why I'm such a big target of, criticism. You're such a big target of criticism. When you're effective in that regard, you will be a person that is targeted. Candace Owens, something just came out today, like Candace Owens was like, there was a fake death about Candace Owens. Nobody's taking out Candace Owens, right? Because she's not effective, right? What she is she's captivating. She like I said this yesterday in the George Fontes interview, because I was like, she might have 80,000 viewers. I only got 2,000. And George goes, wait a minute. He goes, you have 2,000 live viewers every day? I'm like, yeah. He goes, think of if you were sitting in a theater, right? And you stood on stage and you had 2,000 people watching you every single day. He's like, that's captivating. And then I replied back, I go, the way that now that you put it that way, I do feel better about myself, because if I had a theater of 2,000 of my followers, I'd see patriots, I'd see interesting people, I'd see people that want to actually engage in the conversation. You fill Candace's stadium with 80,000 of her viewers, it'll look like Walmart, right? It'll look like Walmart, it'll look like a trailer park. She's not giving information to an audience that actually matters, right? So she's not actually really affecting change. That's a Howard Stern, shock jock, Nick Fuentes. They don't have as much power and influence as they think. That's not to say that they aren't dangerous, because even the small amount of influence that they have over real people is dangerous. But I think that you understand my point. Yeah, Charlie was just hitting their target audience. That was the problem.
Yeah, when I hear people talk about watching Candace, the main reasons I hear are either A, I want to see what the train wreck is today, which means they don't believe her. They just want to see how crazy she's going to be today.
Exactly.
Or B, her life is such a mess. Her story is such a mess. It makes me feel better about myself that I'm not that crazy, right? So these are like people. These are rubberneckers on the highway primarily, and then like kind of legitimately damaged people that are in her cult, because that's what she is. She's a cult leader. And that's what all these people are, is they're cult leaders. And the diagnoses of that with Candace in particular are really sharp. Like, people who really know this stuff. I even saw Dan Bongino talking about it, like the symptoms that you're dealing with a charlatan who's stringing you along, about how they've always got, the hidden knowledge, and they're always about to reveal it, and they just can't right now. Please subscribe to my thing or whatever. And it's like, there have been breakdowns, like really good breakdowns. I think it's Ryan Morrow, is that his name, that's been going through these? Yeah. And like he'll go like block by block through Candace's shows and like lay out this is this technique that sets you up for the next technique, and this is how it psychologically manipulates you and keeps you basically on the chain. It makes me think of like when you go fishing and you've got like that chain that you put all the fish on to hold them.
Yeah, string lining.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And so, like, that's what she's doing. Like, this is a cult dynamic. And I've been trying to scream for a long time that, like, we think of cults, we think of people in like funny robes, or we think of, Jonestown and skipping off to Guyana and hiding from the CIA or FBI or whatever. But in reality, most cults today are online. Most of them are with streamers who are in your face, talking to you every single day and feeding you some BS to keep you hooked. And then, like, when you don't do what they want, they scream at you and like, you suck, send me $10 or I'm going to quit the channel, like all kinds of crazy stuff. And these people, Fuentes is another one. Fuentes, it's a funny case because Fuentes openly says this is what he's running. He openly says it's a cult. He openly says he doesn't care who's following him as long as they will do his bidding.
Yeah, I will kill, rape, and die for Nick Fuentes.
Yeah, but like, he's even said, like, I just want people who send me money and will attack my enemies for me when I tell them to.
Yeah,
that's all I care about.
That's the funny thing is people don't realize that Nick. I mean, we do, but some people don't realize that Nick Fuentes is very clever. Right? He's I wouldn't say smart, clever. I would say not intelligent, but clever. And manipulative, and that's a danger. He's also funny. I like it. I would be lying if I said that I haven't seen clips of him where I go, like, I think he's a horrible person. Okay, so I don't want to get it twisted where I'm saying like I think that he has some credibility or value. He doesn't have any value. He doesn't have any credibility. But I can acknowledge, it's like when Trump, all right, the perfect example. When Trump says, Xi Jinping's a very smart guy, it's like people go, oh my God, I can't. Trump's right. He's right. He's giving credit because you need to understand if you take your enemy and you minimize them down to just some dumb thing that doesn't matter, then you're not taking them seriously, right? So
this is actually a huge thing. I mean, not to bring up another character we don't want to make too much of, but this is actually a thing that Hitler talked about in Mein Kampf in the chapter about propaganda. So he's talking about World War I propaganda and why the German World War I propaganda failed. And it's because the World War I propaganda that the Germans did was like all this stuff about like how stupid and idiotic and ugly and all this that the British soldiers were and the Allied soldiers. And then when the Germans actually met them on the battlefield, it was exactly wrong. And so all of a sudden it's like they didn't, like the propaganda fell apart, and all of a sudden they didn't believe the next piece of propaganda that was supposed to keep them fighting. So Hitler was like, you can't do it that way. You've got to do your propaganda all these other ways. And so this is exactly like what you're saying. Like if Trump, if he came out and said, well, Xi Jinping is like, a really dumb guy. He doesn't have any standing. Nobody cares. Like it's just not, anybody who's looking at the situation understands that that's not real and that Trump's not a credible voice on the issue.
Yeah.
You've got to actually, in other words, to do propaganda well, you've got to lie with a lot of truth.
Yes. Yeah, and that's what I mean. So, but like I was saying, right? Like, so yeah, Nick and entertaining them, they're not necessarily like smart. Like I would say that you're smart. Like Nick is a manipulator, right? It's like, and you have to acknowledge that, and you have to recognize that in order to not be manipulated. It's like there's this romanticization from Nick Fuentes of authoritarian figures, right? That's not an accident, right? That is so. Like you were saying earlier, and we talked about this on my last guest spot, right? Where you said you have the left who wants to sort of like burn it down because because Trump bad, orange man bad, or white man bad, or capitalist bad, et cetera, et cetera. But then Nick would be an accelerationist, right? And he wants to burn it down for a completely different reason, right? So they both want to burn it down. And when like you said earlier, when he was on a debate with Steven Crowder, Steven Crowder goes, okay, you burn it down. Who do you install? And Nick Fuentes goes, he doesn't have a follow-up, right? He goes, somebody will arise. And Steven Crowder's like, what does that mean? Right? It's like, so when these people, if you try to burn down the system, right? Because you're unhappy. See, the founding fathers, they put this constitutional republic in place with the electoral college process and representative government, where if you don't like your government, you have every 2 to 4 years, you can elect a new one, and that's how it's supposed to work. Nick wants to burn it all down and start something new. What is the new thing? They don't know. But because Nick romanticizes people like Stalin and Hitler, we can only assume that's what he means, right? So what he doesn't want to say it out loud. He doesn't want to say, I want to install an authoritarian, ultra-nationalist Christian theocracy. And he kind of does say it. But he doesn't want to say it straight up like that. I want to literally overthrow the government. And what he really means is, I want to be in charge. He's like, I want to be in charge. I want to round up all the Jews, kill them. I want to have a Christian theocracy. Abortion is illegal. They want to get rid of the constitutional republic that we currently have. Therefore, they are not America first. They are not for any America that is recognizable to the America that not only we have right now, but way past the one that our founding fathers envisioned. So when you have that, when you recognize that, and you understand he's clever, and that's what he's doing, then you can sort of cut through the BS when all of his followers are like, he's America first. Thomas Massey, same thing. You're not a constitutionalist, bro. You're not a constitutionalist. What are you talking about? You're a libertarian. Libertarians want to fundamentally change the system that we have, right? And I'd be fine with it if you said that. But the fact that you're lying to us, that's the problem. And I wanted to bring this up, right? Because I have this, I had my followers put together this little image for me, okay? And it's a very rough draft. But I wanted to get your thoughts on it, right? Because I feel like what is going on right now with the divide on the right, etc., essentially it's a pyramid scheme. Okay. Now, on the screen I have the pyramid that I asked one of my followers who knows how to do internet stuff better than me to make me this, right? If I was to redo this, if I wanted to do a revision, I'd probably put China and Russia and a couple others in there. But the top of the pyramid is essentially China. Under China, you have proxies. Under proxies, you have NGOs. Under NGOs, you have universities and social media indoctrination. And under that, you have Podcastistan. So what it is it's a recruitment operation from the top down. And when I say China, what I'm really talking about is the New World Order, right? So the New World Order and the globalist agenda is the top of the pyramid. Under that, China uses China and the NWO, whatever. They use Iran, Venezuela, the narco terrorists in Mexico. There's a bunch, right? But all of that is to physically hurt America. And that kind of goes hand in hand with the NGOs. Now, the bottom two, so universities, social media indoctrination, and Podcastistan, those are what we're talking about. That's the woke right. That's the woke left. That's the psyop, if you will. Because there's the top three are basically ops, and the bottom two are basically psyops, and they work together. Influence and enablement flows upward, and what the whole thing, I believe, is designed to do is to destroy America from within, the same way Yuri Bezmenov told us about in the 80s. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the only thing I would probably, I know what you mean by China, is I would just call the thing at the top the new axis.
That would be a good one. That's what we'll do.
Because that thing's actually complicated when we start to look at it. You do have what we would call the globalists. The real word for them is the mondialists. So that's your World Economic Forum, United Nations, Yahoo.
And that's what I mean by China. It doesn't really make
Russia
sense.
Is like a weird entity within this. But if you read this lunatic Alexander Dugin that the woke right seems to be weirdly in love with, nobody knows how much the Russians like him, but he's a Russian guy. The woke right seems to love him. Nick Fuentes and Richard Spencer were talking about him and his ideas back in 2018, when really? Nick was 19 years old.
Back when he was super MAGA.
Yeah. And so Bannon met with the guy in 18, and then Tucker interviews him when he's on his weird Russia bread and trains tour, and Aaron McIntyre, not his real name, has hosted him at least twice, this guy's
Candace Owens is now romantic.
I'm going to meet him because everybody's talking about him. I didn't want to.
Well, but again, hold on, real quick. I don't mean to interrupt you, but look, no. This is what I mean, right? Do you
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
understand that it works the same way as the Avon lady or a Tupperware
That's
or
right.
it works the same way. Candace is just the newest recruit, right? And
Yeah.
that's what people need to understand.
That's right. That's right. And these recruits down on the further end do not actually win the prize. They get basically
They're getting the scraps.
pegged.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so anyway, the point is that I was going to make is what Dugan says in his crackpot book, The Foundations of Geopolitics, is what ties together this thing that I would call new axis is what he calls the principle. He says it again and again. There's an entire section on it, the principle of common enemy. And so this is why woke right is like kind of so relevant, because woke in essence means enemy of America in a specific way, but they're all enemies of America. They're all enemies of the Constitution. And so once you become an enemy of the American experiment and the Constitution, you are susceptible to principle of common enemy with Axis. So that's whether it's Russia, whether it's China, whether it's Iran, whether it's the World Economic Forum and UN. And I'm not saying that these guys are all working together. In fact, I think they're frenemies. I was just listening to a congressman from North Carolina talk, and he's sharp as hell, former like Green Beret, smart as hell. And he's talking about when you look at all these kind of, whether it's China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, and so on, you look at these enemy entities, what you don't find is like genuine allyship where they're like going to lay out risk for each other.
Well,
What you
yeah.
do see is that when there's interests converging, they work together mercilessly against people like us. And that speaks to this idea of common enemy. So then the woke on the left, as Yuri Bezmenov called them, political prostitutes, and the woke right, who are like, I want to be a whore too, are like, they become susceptible to principle of common enemy against their own country and become the enemy within. And that's a huge freaking problem. And that's your triangle's right, your pyramid's right.
Well, so that's the thing, right? So we had you have the Red Green Alliance, you have the Axis of Evil. These alliances, they actually don't make sense, right? Because Hitler was not necessarily a Christian, but he had talked about this thing called proper Christianity, which is essentially Christianity without the Old Testament. But he also he did not praise Islam, but he gave it a little bit of credit.
They
But
thought it was better for accomplishing goals.
they thought it was
than
better for
Christianity.
exactly. Now, what I don't understand is, right, if Hitler was an Aryan supremacist, right, white nationalist, Aryan supremacist, right, pure bloodline, et cetera, et cetera. It makes no sense that he would have these high praise for Islam or even partner up with Muslims. Yet he did, right?
For Arabs, which he called the purely Semitic people.
Correct, right? So that's what I'm saying. And you mentioned something earlier, and I've mentioned it before. Not in the same way, but you said something like trans. You have a trans son. I called Nick Fuentes and the Myron Gaines. I call them trans Nazis, right? Because if if you think about it, it actually does make sense. Nick Fuentes is half Mexican, right? Myron Gaines is a Sudanese white supremacist. Like, these people would be absolutely like curb stomped by any actual Aryan supremacist, right? Like if you had a real hardcore 80s white supremacist skinhead, Nick Fuentes would not be able to be in that club. And now he's the leader of the movement, and Myron Gaines, the same thing. Myron Gaines has even been called out by not even actual. Myron Gaines has been called out by less trans Nazis, right? Where they're like, you're just another N-word. So it does. So you're spot on. But what I don't understand is how, if that's so easy for somebody like you and me to see, how do so many other people not see it?
I actually think that I gave you the answer already, which is that principle of common enemy poisons your brain.
Yeah.
Like, once you start thinking that all that actually matters is that we have to destroy the enemy, and anybody who wants to fight the enemy with me is got it basically right, even if I disagree with them on some other stuff.
It's denial. Yeah.
It
just breeds some type of denial.
Queers for Palestine is the result of
this,
right? This is a completely nonsensical thing. And it's the same idea. It's this principle of common enemy absolutely fries your noodle. And this is why everybody got so pissed off at Matt Walsh, and nobody's let it go when he was like, and I'll give him a little credit. Like he's scared. He's getting death threats all the time or whatever. And like he just saw Charlie get shot. He was Charlie's friend for real. Like I
No, I
know
know,
that
I
was
know.
the case.
I do
And so
like
like he's
Matt.
scared. And I think a lot of people got their brains scrambled by that fear. And so he comes out and is like, I'm willing to unite with anybody who's against. And we were like, no, you no, like who? Who,
Yeah,
Matt?
yeah,
Like let's be more clear about this because this is the actual problem we're talking about.
Well,
And like the problem is that fear and that common enemy principle scramble your brain to where what you do is you make an alliance with somebody who ultimately, let's say, it works out for a while. Ultimately, you're going to kill each other. It's going to be like if the communists had made a pact with the Nazis, eventually they're going to be killing each other. If we had made the pact with the Nazis instead of the Soviets in World War II, eventually we would have had to kill the other one.
well, that's what I'm saying. I think that's their logic, right? Their logical fallacy, like well, not logical fallacy. Their logic is, well, we partnered with Stalin to take down Hitler, right? So how bad could it be? I'm like, yeah, but we planned to take down Stalin like right after. We weren't just saying like I'm going to align with you and then open-ended like we'll figure it out later. We played them, and that's the thing that I don't think that people like Matt Walsh are looking ahead on, right? Where it's like, and I do like Matt Walsh, I do, because I think that, I think that the What is a Woman documentary is probably one of the greatest documentaries ever created. It not only shined a light on it, it was genius, it was brilliant, it was put together. I like the way that he uses his humor to talk
Truly
about
hilarious.
talk about certain issues, exposing leftist hypocrisy, etc. Right?
Matt Walsh, the socially conservative Borat, is freaking hilarious.
Exactly,
Objectively funny,
exactly. And
moves the needle, does the job. I wish he would do more of it. I'd
yeah,
promote it, even though I don't like him, if he did more of it.
yeah, me too. Exactly. And balls and strikes. But then you get Am I Racist? And Am I Racist wasn't that really good. It was like it wasn't. It didn't have that same joie de vivre because he is kind of racist, right? Like he is actually kind of racist. So it didn't have that same stick. It was almost like he was trying to convince people that he's not racist, as opposed to when he was genuinely asking what is a woman to the left. So I think that what Matt falls into is a trap of, like what we were talking about earlier with the former neo-Nazi who says, I just need to convince you that you're white, right? Once I convince you you're white, right, you're going to be looking at it through the lens of white. And then from there on, like the question I just asked you that you gave an answer to, but it's really not an answer, is like how? It's like, it's got to just be some denial of facts that you're
It's true.
not seeing the big picture here as you are actually contributing to the problem.
Yeah, well, totally. And I mean, that lends into another thing with this. I hear all the time, like, James, like these guys, these kids have been told that they're wrong for existing like their whole life. Like let them identify as who they are, let them beat their chests a little bit, let them have like some breathing room. COVID screwed their lives up. They've been told that they're straight white men and Christian, they're worthless. Let them identify, let them step into that, let them feel some dignity in it and like whatever. And it's like a lot of them are not doing like I kind of like on the edge. I'm like, okay, a little bit, but then I'm like, a lot of them are not doing cool shit with this. Like they're doing really
Yeah.
uncool shit with this,
Well,
right?
this is
But I'm like, my thing is, these are the exact same people who didn't tolerate this argument when BLM was burning down cities.
yeah.
Because the left was like, they're black, they're oppressed. Riot is the what was it, the last gasp of the unheard or some bullshit. And it's like
Yeah.
nobody accepted this.
It's
They were
a-
like,
it-
no, these young men can get their act together and build a better life, or they can act like animals. And they're being encouraged to act like animals by our politicians, by our media, by everybody. And this is a disaster. And now it's like, oh, let these angry white men act like animals. And it's like, no, actually, I expect better of everybody.
Exactly. And so like when I hear like Andrew Wilson's argument in our debate was they're not the woke right, they're the reactionary right. And I go, okay, if they're the reactionary right, which they are, I mean, but you have a valid concern with the fact that young white straight men have been demonized, right? So you have a proper reason to react to something. But if your reaction is improper, then then it's a vicious cycle that we're just going to continue going down. So yes, I have a reaction to the fact that I've been demonized by the left for years of being a straight white male, but I don't. My reaction to that is not to become them, right? And
Right,
that's
exactly.
the thing, because I understand that what they're doing is wrong. So I guess it's kind of like you teach your kids. It's like like hey, if you if a bully is being a bully, right? Like you attack the bully. If a bully's being a bully, you don't become a bully, right? Like so like you don't start.
You don't go join his gang.
Exactly. So yeah, or start a rival gang. It's common sense. This is fifth grade stuff. So it's above our intellect. I wanted to get to your page here because I actually noticed something. I didn't know that you had this organism. Let me get rid of that. As we discussed earlier, I am very bad with technology. I've been 6 hours last night. I'm sitting there just messing around with a bunch of stuff, and I think I finally got it. So hopefully you guys can hear and see this episode properly. But anyway, yeah, I got your page pulled up. So Chief Anti-Totalitarianism Officer at at New Discourses, and I hadn't actually seen that before, but I
Best
went
part of
on.
running your own company is you can give yourself any title you want, and I finally realized that, and I just chose that funny one.
I'm gonna update my bio like most expertest bestest tile setter ever. But yeah, so I haven't seen this page before. I just followed it, New Discourses, and I wanted to talk to you about this because obviously this is an interview with you. I wanted to get your stuff out there. Preserving Liberty Conference at Sea. Is that what? So, First of all, what is New Discourses?
It's
Explain that.
basically my publishing arm, right?
Okay.
So like I make podcasts. I used to write a lot of articles. I write some articles now. I occasionally I used to publish a lot of books. I'm working on publishing another book now. And so New Discourses is the company that I founded with a couple of my colleagues in order to be able to put my material out in a kind of coherent place, right?
Yeah,
Instead of
because you've been
having it kind
canceled
of
so much. Yeah.
scattered everywhere and whatever else. So some people like to criticize it and call it my blog. That's fine. I don't care. But it's technically my media platform for my media.
Okay.
I used to bring in guest articles very rarely. Every now and then I will, but I'm really selective because a lot of people are weird and I don't want to deal with them.
Okay,
yeah,
so it's essentially your media platform. Now, explain this Preserving Liberty Conference at Sea. What's going on here?
we're gonna try something like usually once or twice a year. We try to get together somewhere in the country. It's been Dallas, Texas, the last couple of years at a hotel. Have like a weekend long workshop or whatever. Bring a bunch of people together. Usually it's about 100 to 200 people who are like fans, supporters, or whatever, and like give them some new content, some meat. Let them take notes. Let them ask questions. We hang out. They get to know me some. We have a good time. And the guys that I made New Discourses with, this is a lot of people know who Mike O'Fallon is. He's got kind of a presence too. Mike O'Fallon is the co-owner of New Discourses, and he runs another company of his own and has for 26 years that does like tours and like travel stuff for groups. Like if you want to do like high end a ministry tour of like a bunch of historical sites relevant to your denomination, like he puts that stuff together, has great access to cool stuff. But one of the things he does also and has been doing since like literally like 2000 or 2001 is conferences at sea. So he's been wanting to have me do one for New Discourses since we started talking in 2019. I finally caved in this year and was like, okay, I'll go on a boat. So we're gonna give it a try.
That looks fun.
Long, yeah, so everybody can come.
Oh, it'll be a week long, huh?
It's a week long.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, out of Tampa, Florida, round trip down, actually around the end of Florida over to the Bahamas and then back.
No, that sounds cool.
Something like 12, I think there's 12 lecture sessions. So we'll give speeches or have interactive Q&A. And
yeah, I got on the screen here. Yeah, so I wanted to get to, we got about maybe 10 minutes left. So I want to make sure, because I saw this was right before we started, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, three things, three things we have to talk about, and you have them pretty much right here. Bolsheviks it's like, all right, yeah, like I could debunk that in 35 seconds, all right? Like, what is 5% or something of the Bolsheviks were Jewish? Candace, sorry, you're a retard.
Yeah.
But I do want to touch on. We already touched on the kind of the propaganda, the threat pyramid, etc. But the Islam, I want to make sure we get to Islam
Okay.
before we wrap up, right?
And
Because
what people were looking at there, those are stubs from my podcast. So you can go
yeah,
click on.
no, I know that. So the top one was the cruise. That's separate.
Right.
But because it was on the same page, I go, oh, check, check, check.
Right.
But just wanted to remind myself, like, so I was having this conversation with George Fontes, and I said the greatest threat to America is not Iran. It's what did you call it? The new threat,
New Axis.
new axis. Okay,
Yeah.
but I just say China, right?
Sure. Sure.
New axis. And he's like, no, 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 Islam is a threat. I go, no, 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 no. I didn't say that Islam is not a threat. Islam is the greatest threat to Europe right now. Islam is the greatest threat to that region right now. China's our greatest threat, right? And new axis. I actually like that. I'm going to steal it. You stole woke right. I get to steal this. All right, we're even.
Popular.
So what I'm seeing, and again, when we go back to the threat pyramid, right? I'm seeing that pretty much not everything, but a lot of the things that Trump has done in his second term, they all sort of go up the pyramid, right? If you think about it, he designated Antifa as a terrorist organization. Who's Antifa funded by? The NGOs that China funds, right? Who did he go after? Narco terrorists in Mexico, Venezuela. Those are basically proxies, right? He went after Maduro, another proxy. He's keeping Cuba in check, let's say, another proxy. I don't know how many Russians or have killed America. I don't know how Russia has been responsible for the death of Americans or how many. I know that China has been responsible for over 100,000 deaths a year, every year in America for at least 2 decades, well, maybe a decade and a half, because of fentanyl, right? And they only sell the precursor. They sell fentanyl. And then they use their proxies to get it into America through Canada, through Mexico, through Venezuela a little bit, what have you. So what I'm seeing is Trump is actually, and then Iran, obviously, even when he was going after Canada, calling them the 51st state, getting Greenland, all of these things, minus naming the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. I don't know what that was about. But all of these things, if you really look at it holistically, if you zoom out, you're like, every one of these things hurts the new axis. Every one of them. Almost everything Trump has done hurts the new axis, and I don't believe in coincidences. So do you think that he's actually aware and it's intentional and that's what's actually going on?
Yep. And yeah, that's exactly what I think is going on. I think he understands there's meant to be this giant shift to a Chinese power base by literally controlling Asia, by controlling the economic fortunes of 6 billion people on the planet through the Belt and Road Initiative and the New Silk Road. I think he understands how China is trying to position itself to be the primary global superpower, if not the only global superpower, by mid-century. So you start talking about Agenda 2030 and looking forward to Agenda 2050, and the handoff is supposed to be the China's dominance somewhere in between those. And so by 2100, China is what America is today on the world stage, and America is, maybe if we're lucky, what China is, but probably more like what Russia is on the
Yeah.
world stage. And
Because
this handoff
China
is what
thinks
he's
long term,
fighting.
and our government, our politicians, our leaders have thought short term for so long, and I think that Trump is the only one who's thinking long term. So while Islam is the greatest threat to, let's say, the Middle East, because the rape gang inquiry report that just came out, the multiculturalism that's destroying France, Germany, UK, all of these places. That is a great threat. And Islam is a huge threat to America. It is not the greatest threat, right?
No,
The
it's
greatest.
rising very quickly. We're not at the breaking point yet, and some people are starting to think we're getting pretty close to it. Um, I think we should be taking it very seriously. So the reason you see a podcast there that I did that came out this past week is because I'm trying to just, my job is, in my opinion, mostly to inform people to the best of my ability. So what this podcasts are, that podcast is, I've taken this book, Milestones, which is considered to be, he's not the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood. He joined in the 60s. But this guy, Saeed Qutb, wrote the book that's kind of taken to be as sort of like their intellectual engine in a sense, since 1964 when he published it. And of course, he had some essays before that as well that were pretty influential. So this has been very influential on Muslim Brotherhood thinking. Now, obviously, we think of the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization, but it's like, look, if this is what we're dealing with in the country, if this is one of the issues on the table, why don't we just go listen to what the guy who gave them their ideology in its modern form, why don't we see what he wrote? And so, let's lay out what's the basic nature of Islam as the Muslim Brotherhood sees it. And what's how does that compare with what we hear? How does that compare with global events? But yeah, the goal is just to influence or to inform people about the various threats. Islam is a very rapidly rising
Well,
threat.
they just keep they reproduce so much. That's really they literally try to outbang the competition.
Jihad
right?
by the womb.
Yeah.
Actually, literally, it's this idea of striving to take over another country by outpopulating it.
Well, and to really I really mean this. I want you to be scared about what I say next. Everybody listening, I need you to be very scared because once I say it, you might not have thought about it before, and it's freaking scary. Right now, what we're seeing in the UK, they're now all of the sudden, after all of this has, degraded, they're going, we're going to slow down immigration, we're going to kick people out. How many babies were born in the time that it took that to happen? That's over, right? So they have populated Europe with I don't know how many thousands of new Muslims. You can close the border. It doesn't matter. It's over, right? They are screwed because the actual true colonizers are the Islamists. They have colonized and they will colonize, and you only need, they only need, I think it's 6% of the population in the UK is Muslim. 15, 20 years, that's going to be a Muslim, that could be a Muslim nation. So the reason why you have to cut it off now, we are not too far gone in America. We have not passed the Rubicon, but it's getting close. And I don't like when you paint things with a broad brush, right? Black people, white people, Jews, Christians, anything. But I do have an exception. It's Islam. It's Islam because it is an ideology. It's not a religion. It's not a people. I'm not talking about Arabs. I'm not talking about Muslims. I'm talking about Islamists. And that you have to do something about. Otherwise, it's a cancer.
That's right. And I mean, this is why the European remigration plan might actually be a complete necessity to save Europe. And
it's the only thing you can do. But I mean, again, what about all the natural born practicers of Islam that have come in through their warm embrace of multiculturalism over the past 2 decades?
Denaturalize and deport.
Denaturalize, but they're natural born.
Yeah, I think literally the plan is going, I don't know, I haven't read their actual plan, but I think their plan is going to be to basically say, you know what, forget it.
that would be the only way. And it would there would be so much backlash, but that would literally be a break glass in case of emergency situation. And look, if we allow it to happen here, it will have the same result. There's no other result. If you look at the way that Islam has populated other nations, if you just look at it over a map of 80 years, right? If you look at Muslim nations and how they've grown, populations have grown, it's crazy. It looks like a freaking virus growing. It looks like a culture in a biolab that's growing. And then everybody talks about Israel, this little tiny little dot in the middle of it that refuses to die. And they go, that's the problem. I go, that's actually not the problem.
That's the projection, right? Is you blame Israel for the thing that you're doing, right, Candace Owens?
Exactly. Yeah, well, we're at 52 minutes, man. We do got to wrap it up. I appreciate you coming on. This has been a great conversation. I wish we had more time. Unfortunately, they stuck me on a live show, so we only have an hour. But I'm gonna pull up your page here, and then I'm gonna let you shout yourself out. So if you guys want to follow James Lindsay, you can go to X @ConceptualJames. Chief Anti-Totalitarianism Officer at New Discourses, newdiscourses.com. Oh, you're in Tennessee. I didn't know that. You're in Knoxville.
That's right.
Sean Farish is in Weatherford, I think.
There's more Tennesseans doing this than
Not
people
Weatherford.
realize.
Murfreesboro. That's where.
Murfreesboro.
Murfreesboro. When I went and met him and saw him, I was like, "Is it Murfreesboro? No, Murfreesboro."
Murfreesboro. That's
Yeah.
right. That's where MTSU is and where you used to go to party.
Yeah. Sean's great. I don't know if you know him. He's great. You should go on his show as well. Anyway, give yourself a shout out and wrap it up.
All right. Well, that's me, Conceptual James on X, at New Discourses, also on all the social media. The YouTube channel is New Discourses, not Conceptual James. So you can go to YouTube at New Discourses and find all my podcasts. I think I'm like 500 something episodes deep, so you're behind. And they're deep, man. I typically read primary sources directly to people. Got a lot going on. I never kind of stop. Got another book coming soon, so look forward to it. It's about political warfare and public opinion warfare primarily. So plenty of stuff going on. So let's get our acts together. Let's find out what's going on. Let's save America, and let's stop falling for all these damn psyops. Like,
there's so many of them. It really is hard to. It's so hard to. Yeah, that really is. That's one of the biggest things is I hate that I have to say it, right? Because I have to toe a very fine line between calling out Candace and Ian Carroll and a bunch of other morons and retards who are conspiratards while telling everybody there is a huge psyop going on, right? So I don't want to sound like them because I'm like, so a psyop is a little bit different than a conspiracy theory, right? A psyop is fake news, right? A psyop is something that we all can see, right? Where it's like if you have common sense and critical thinking and deductive reasoning. A conspiracy theory is an exploding microphone killed Charlie Kirk, or a bee cult killed Charlie Kirk, or Egyptian planes or something like that. It's different. Anyway, thanks, James. I really appreciate it. I will. I don't know if you have a show. I'd love to come on, and we'll keep in touch.
No show, just me ranting, reading books to people. And
well, then we'll bring you back on this show. All right, brother. I appreciate it. Thanks. Alrighty then. All right. So I saw in the chat people were saying like his audio was low, so I did try to sort of just play with the dial while he was towards the end there, and I noticed that when I was listening to playback, but I hope it didn't get too bad. And towards the end, I don't know if you noticed there were some ups and downs. That was me trying to raise the volume while he was speaking and then lower it while I was speaking. But that's just a great show, a great interview, and James is a very, very informative guy. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. And tomorrow is 2A Thursday. So I'm not sure if I got a guest coming. I reached out to a couple, and if not, I have something that we can highlight for that. But Sean Farish is coming up next with Ungoverned. So I'm going to do a quick shout out, and you guys can enjoy that with him. Thanks, Zach. Great show. Thank you. Miss Mocha Powered, Winky Winky Nod Nod, Darlene Dempsey, R-Star77, D-Links, Bad Moon, 001, Ainsley Michelle, blew my ears out, my bad. My bad, I was trying. All right, 9 o'clock, we'll see you tomorrow, peace.